snickerdoodles. Today I'm going to run through at least 5 poses, then I'm going to cue the 6th one on here. I may not be able to get into. Maybe I'll just cue it for you. We'll do that. So this is just some more practice. I'm going to cue us basically starting in the first pose. Like we'll get us into the first pose, and then we'll cue through all 6 hopefully. I'm going to be doing Sphinx or Salamba Bhujangasana, Locust, which is Salambasana, Bow, Dhanurasana, Camel, Ustrasana, Ustrasana, there we go, Ustrasana, Bridge, Setu Bandhasana, and then the 6th one is Wheel, which is technically my peak pose for the class I've been learning to sequence and work through. Urdhva Dhanurasana. And I don't always get into wheel. Back bends are not easy for me. So all of these have some aspect of a back bend in them. So if you have any low back issues, anything where you're worried about tweaking your back, just be careful. Don't go as high, don't go in as deep. Don't do them at all if you're not comfortable with it. There's modifications that I'm going to try to work through on these, so just do whatever you're comfortable with. And another way to think of back bends is we're opening our heart, and that actually gives you a little bit more lift up in your chest and heart area so that you can press up and lengthen instead of bend in your low back and collapse and compact that, which is what ends up, at least for me, causing pain. So we'll think of these as heart openers. Alright, we are going to go ahead and get started. We'll do Sphinx Pose first. So go ahead and lie flat on your belly on the mat. And for Sphinx Pose, you're going to, let's do a Cobra first, actually. So when you're flat on your mat, go ahead and lift your right leg up and kind of press your toes as far towards the back of your mat or towards the wall behind you as you can go, and then put your right foot down. And that just kind of gives you a little bit more space along your entire leg so that your entire leg is now grounded and touching the floor. We'll do the same with the left foot. So lift it up, reach, press it down. And then from there you're going to press all of your weight down through your thighs and the tops of your feet. Have your hands, your palms down on the mat below your shoulders, and to come into Cobra, inhale and lift up with your heart. And you don't even have to go very far. I didn't move up very far. This is the first heart opener that I've done today, so just moving up a little bit, maybe press into your hands and kind of move up and down, and just give yourself a little bit of movement to get warmed up. Make sure that you're breathing. Okay, exhale, release, bring your cheek down to the mat. Just rest a moment. Alright, inhale, lift through your heart to come up, and notice how I'm leaving my neck long. I'm not trying to look up, I'm not looking way down. It's just a long line, just continuing from the top of my spine. You can use your feet pressing into the mat to kind of help guide your chest up a little bit more. You can even remove your hands from the ground if you want to make it more of a core activation. Couldn't talk? Well, I did that. And then exhale, release. Alright, next we're going to come into Sphinx. So go ahead and press down through the palms of your hand and the tops of your feet, and inhale. And inhale, go ahead and press into your palms more so you can lift your chest up a little bit, and then get your elbows underneath your shoulders. So you kind of slide your hands forward. So your hands and your arms are in a number 11 shooting out from in front of you. We're again lifting at the heart, pointing our chest forward, and we're also not collapsing the neck. There's lots of space in the neck, both the front and the back of it. So we're breathing. And another thing to think about, when you're in your Sphinx Pose, try pressing your pelvis into the ground. When you do that, it lowers your tailbone or drops your tailbone, and it takes pressure off the low back. It's a bit of an activation of your core as well. If you really want to feel what that feels like, press more into your elbows and press into your tops of your feet and lift. Inhale, lift your tailbone and hips up. When you do that, suck your belly into your spine, and now we've activated our core, activated our abs. You also can kind of think of it like zipping up your rib cage. You're kind of sucking your belly in. Go ahead and exhale and lower. And now try that pressed up against your mat, that same feeling. Just kind of lowers everything, makes your spine longer, presses your chest open a little bit more. Alright, let's exhale and slowly lower back to the ground. And go ahead and take your arms, palms beside your thighs. So bring your arms around back behind you. And you can lay your cheek on the ground. I always put my chin on the ground, but it's a little more, you're not cramping your neck, so I try to remember to do the side of my face. Alright, next we're going to go into Locust Pose, very similar to Sphinx Pose that we've been doing. You can press into the tops of your feet again and your thighs, and we're going to inhale, lift at the chest, so your chest is coming up, which means your head and your neck follow, and you don't have to go any more high than where I'm at. We're still getting a bit of a heart opener. You can use the tops of your hands to kind of help press down, or if you want to put your palms down, you can use those as kind of a foundation. If you want to go even higher, go ahead and exhale, come down. Inhale, lift yourself back up. You can bring your palms up a little further. When you do that, press them towards the back of the mat so that your shoulders drag down a little bit on your back. And that helps to open your heart as well. And another thing you can do, you can clasp your hands together, and that'll bring your shoulders even closer together and open your heart even more. Let's go ahead and exhale. Slowly release your hands if you clasp them. Cheek down to the mat. And we're going to do Locust one more time, because the other thing we can do to make it even a little more intense is also lift the legs. So this time, lift on your inhale, lift your chest and your legs and your arms so that everything is floating, and the only thing touching the mat is your pelvis, your stomach, maybe the tops of your ribs. And again, I'm not looking up. My gaze is fairly neutral. My neck is technically just resting on my spine. Go ahead and exhale and release. And something that I forgot to grab is my blanket. So one thing that may help, I have carpet and I have 3 mats, because my knees and my pelvis bones and hips don't play nicely with the ground. So one thing you can do when you're doing all these heart openers on the mat is put something underneath your pelvis to give you a little bit of cushion. When I'm not on carpet, I almost always have a blanket, or like this pillow. I use this pillow a lot. So that is always an option if you felt that in your pelvis bone or something else that just didn't want to be pressing against the ground. Alright, next, we just did full locust. We're going to go into bow, but I'm going to get you into bow slowly. So in our locust position, flat on our belly on the mat, bend your right knee so your foot is lifting up, and use your hand to grab your foot. And if you can't grab your foot with your hand, you can use a strap like this, loop it around your foot, and you can pull that in as well. So if you were going to do it that way, it would look like this. So what we're going to do is inhale, lift up into locust, and use the strap to pull your foot, and use your foot to pull against the strap, so you have an equal opposite activation of your muscles there. If you were going to grab your foot, you can do it from the outside, you can grab from the inside. That's awkward for me. I don't really like how that feels. I think it's more intense for some people. I usually grab the outside, and again, I'm kicking my foot in my hand, and that helps open my heart even more. And my locust side, I just have up like we did earlier. So my hand and my feet are up, and I'm pulling my shoulder back. Exhale and release. We'll do the other side. So bend your left knee, grab your foot with your hand on the left side, and kick your hand into your foot. Kick your foot into your hand, because that's the way those body parts work. And then inhale, lift yourself up. Hand and leg on the other side lift up as well, and we're opening our chest. Go ahead and exhale and release. And so now boat pose is going to be both legs bent. Bow pose, I'm sorry, I put a T on there, bow. Use your hands or strap to grab your feet, and then kick into both feet so that it pulls at your hands and pulls your chest up. And then breathe. On your next exhale, go ahead and slowly lower yourself down. Stop kicking. You can release your hands from your feet. Drop everything to the mat for a moment. Rest your cheek on the mat. Take a big inhale. Exhale. Then go ahead and put your, actually let's do a quad opener real quick, because we're about to go into camel, bridge, and maybe wheel. So, laying flat still on our bellies, bring your arms out in a T, so just stretched out next to you. Bend your right leg. Take your right hand so that your elbow is bent, and start pressing into the ground, and flip your foot over your body. So you're opening your hip here and getting a nice hip opener. I always feel this in my quad too, and also it's a shoulder opener. So it can be kind of intense if your shoulder's straight out. You can play with where your shoulder is at in relation to your body, diagonal, pressed up. If you want it to be really intense, I'll show you on the other side. At least this is a really intense one for me. It might not be as intense for other people's bodies. Go ahead and exhale, slowly roll back over and come out of that. Bend the other knee and the other elbow, press your palm into the ground, and open your hip up. And then what you can do is you can put your other arm into an L, basically, kind of cactus it, and then open. That always is more of an intense stretch for me, but I can't always get there. It just depends on the day. On your next exhale, go ahead and release. Come back to laying flat on your belly. Hands underneath your shoulders. Go ahead and slowly push yourself back into a child's pose for a moment, and we'll breathe. Inhale, fill up as much of your body as possible and expand 360 degrees. And then exhale all of it out. Very good. Now inhale, sit back on your heels. So we're sitting just up on our heels and knees, and if that's a little bit too much for you, you can put blanket or bolster or pillow anywhere around on your legs that might feel comfortable, more comfortable for you. Anytime you're in this position, any extra things around there will help. Another thing that I used to do until the tops of my feet became used to it, took a very long time, is I would put this underneath the top bridge of my foot, and that always helped. So whatever you try that works for you, do that. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to take a block, tall, lengthwise, put it between your legs. We're going to grip onto that. We're moving into Camel Pose. So to start with Camel Pose, go ahead, inhale, press down into the tops of your feet and your shins so that you can come up and you're standing on your knees. We've still got our block held between our thighs, and we're going to use that as kind of a point to grip onto and hold. And that keeps our thighs internally rotated to help with our chest opening and reduce some stress on the lower back. So for camel, there are various ways we can do this. Open your heart up, keep your hands on your hips, and lean back. And this might be as far as you go. If you feel like you can go a little further, you can move your hands to the lower part of your back, your sacrum, and you can use that as a little bit of a way to kind of press into your body while your body presses back into your hands and give you some stability, and then you open your heart. From there, you can also go a little further. You can tilt your head back. I have a hard time talking when my neck is back like this, so I'm not going to do that part yet, but you can. And then another thing, one way that I like to go into camel is like if you put an X over your body like this, I will do that with one arm, and then I take one arm back, swoop it around, and go to reach my heel. You can also use a block on the highest setting, the medium setting, or a lower setting if that works for you. Pushing on my heels always affected the tops of my feet. So you can also have that blanket under there if that'll help you. Or you can just not push on your heels. You can also have your feet up on your toes. I used to do that as well. So there's various options you can do that work for you. So with my hand on my hip, my left hand on my right hip, that just kind of helps twist me a little bit so I can turn to grab. And then you can stay here, and you've got half the camel going, or you can swoop your other arm around to the other side. Now we are in a camel pose. We're going to lift into our heart rather than just try to bend in our back. And then you can drop your head. If you feel like you shouldn't drop your head, you're having neck issues, then please do not do that. And then to come out of it, I always come out of it the same way. So I work one arm around, grab my hip, twist myself out of it a little bit, and then swoop my arm up and around to the other side so that I feel even. And then we're out of camel, and we can sit back. And you can do all of that without the block between your thighs as well. There's various options to get into it. So that's camel. let's take one child's pose before we get into bridge. Go ahead and come down to child's pose. This time, if you had your knees together last time, let's separate our knees. If you didn't have your knees together last time, go ahead and put your knees together. We'll just do something slightly different and breathe into how it feels. On your next inhale, slowly walk yourself up. Bring your legs around so that we're sitting on our butts with our legs out in front of us, and we're going to slowly roll back and work on our bridge pose, Setu Bandhasana. Get my ponytail out of the way. So in bridge pose, while you're laying on your back, your knees are bent with your feet, palms, soles down on the ground, feet palms, I guess. You want to place them fairly close to your butt bones. You don't have to get to the point where your fingertips are reaching your heels, but if you want them there, then and you can reach them, that's fine. Feet on the ground. Roll your tailbone up. Kind of rock your spine back and forth just so that you can feel. So naturally when we're laying here, we have a space between our spine and the blanket. If you roll down a little bit, which means your tailbone, your pelvis kind of tilt up or rotate inward, then you remove that space. And that's how we're going to lift. So just kind of roll a couple times and get a feel for that. Our arms are next to us with our palms down on the ground, and you can use those to kind of help press you up when we lift. And the other thing we can do, I'm going to have us do it without the block first, but we can also put a block between our legs like we did in Camel Pose. So first, let's try it without. We're going to press down into the mat with our feet and our palms of our hands and our forearms, everything that's touching the ground. And when you lift first at your tailbone. Remove that space under your back, lift at your tailbone, and we're kind of rolling up as we press. And inhale as you roll up. And then notice what your knees are doing. So mine, I think most people's naturally roll out. So they have an external rotation that they try to dump outwards. Try to internally rotate our knees so they're directly parallel to one another coming out of our hip sockets. And then exhale, roll down slowly, vertebrae by vertebrae, until we reach our tailbone. And then relax a moment. So using the block will help you keep your thighs internally rotated, which keeps your knees in because we're pressing against something. So if you feel like your knees are knocking out really badly, then put the block in there and that'll help. So let's lift in the bridge one more time. We're going to press into our heels and the palms of our hand and our forearms, lift up at our tailbone and slowly roll up. If that feels okay, you can also kind of work your way onto your shoulders, which is pulling your shoulders more onto your back. And then if you have enough space, you can clasp your hands and get onto your shoulders a little bit more. And now we're lifting into our bridge. And notice the difference between pressing the blocks, pressing your thighs against the block versus not having it. For me, it feels a little more stable, but it is a little bit more work. And you also want to think about keeping a lemon or an orange or something between your chin and your collarbone, so just that shape, that space. You don't want to have our neck all the way to our collarbone. We don't want it crunched. To come out of it, you can unclasp your hands, roll off your shoulders, and then slowly roll down, vertebrae by vertebrae, until our tailbone is on the ground. And then we relax. Okay. Next is wheel pose. I don't think I'm getting into it today, but we'll see how my body feels when I try it. I will try to cue you through it. Wheel pose is one of the poses that are worrisome and scary for me. So if you are not comfortable with it at all, please do not try it. We didn't really do a lot of warm up to get there. So if your body's not warm, this is your stopping point. Please listen to your body and do not hurt yourself. I've hurt myself on wheel pose, so it's one that I get really nervous about. Go ahead and bring your feet wide on the mat and let your knees fall in together. Just kind of release our lower back for a minute. Take a few breaths. Get back into how we start with our bridge pose. Do try to get your feet as close to your sits bones as possible. That will usually helps me anyway. Another thing I recommend, if you're going to try it and you're not very comfortable getting into wheel, go ahead and put the block between your thighs. It's going to help keep your knees in, and that's going to help keep you stable in wheel. The other thing that you want to think about, so when we go into wheel, your hands are going to come next to your head. You don't want your elbows externally rotating, not going out. We want them to be as parallel and neutral as possible, so we're going to kind of think about keeping them in, just like when we're in our plank and we're keeping our elbows close to our body. They're still keeping close to our body, it's just now they're in a different direction. Instead of directly under us, they're going to be in front of our head and under us. So to move into wheel, you're going to press yourself forward like in bridge, and you can lift yourself up. If you're going to stop at your head, do not put a lot of pressure on your head. You don't want to put pressure on your neck. And then from there, we're going to press evenly into our feet and our hands, and we're going to come all the way up. And I am not making it today, but if you did keep pressing, make sure you're inhaling. Press up, be strong. You're going to inhale and press your heart forward, so it might be at the back of your mat, but your heart is just going to be shining outward, and you're going to be pressing your knees forward from where they're at. Another thing you can do, which, like I said, I'm not in wheel, so if you're looking at me, it's not going to help, but you can play with your feet. You can heel toe walk them, depends on how comfortable you are with the pose. If you are not comfortable with it at all, but you made it, bravo, that's beautiful. To come out of it, similar to a lot of the intense poses, we're going to come out reverse of the same way we came in. So we're going to slowly lean ourselves forward on our knees, come down slowly and gently, bending your elbows and your knees, and then make sure you don't put a lot of pressure on your head or neck. When your upper back touches the mat, then you can slowly start rolling down like we do in bridge until your knees are bent, and then you fully relax your spine on the mat. If you did go into wheel, let's go ahead and widen your stance with your feet again. Let your knees knock together. Release our spine a little bit and breathe. And another thing you can do is bring your, kind of like, you can do a windshield wiper actually. You can very, very slowly and gently take your knees and move them from side to side like a windshield wiper. You can also stop on one side and relax. a supine twist. Extend one leg, bring your knee over, grab it with your hand, and bring your other arm out to the side. Doesn't have to be intense, just enough to kind of release our lower back since we've been doing a lot of heart openers. And move to the other side. So I'm going to straighten my left leg, bend my right, and then twist it over my body and bring my right arm all the way out. Very good, and thank you so much for joining me as I just went through some poses and practiced cueing them. Any feedback you have, I appreciate. If you made it into wheel, awesome. To me, it's just, I'm always so happy when I get there, so, but heart openers are a rough one for me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. Namaste.